Welcome to the Microsoft Graph session. My name is Yina. And just with a show of hands, I want to know how many software developers do I have in the room today? Great. That's awesome. Have you guys seen the transition slide? Definition that Wikipedia has for software developers? It's a little bit verbose. I bet it was probably written by an engineer. I want to assert a different definition for what a software developer is. If I can figure out the clicker here. Software developer is a person who writes programs that use data to improve lives. So today, we're going to talk about this. And in the industry, we see a lot of examples about software that uses data to improve people's lives. I'm just going to go here. So we see examples like Word taking the input of the keyword and allowing you to save all of that information for later use. The index that Google uses and then allowing you to search and easily find the information that you are looking for. And all of these different things on how software uses data to improve how we live on a daily basis. Now, if we have this premise, today I'm going to show you how, well, actually improving the lives of users with your software, that's your value proposition, right? And then I'm going to show you how you can use data through the Microsoft Graph to enable this. OK, so that's basically an outline for our talk. We're going to talk about the opportunity that Microsoft Graph offers for you as a developer. We're going to go through Microsoft Graph 101, basically how to get started developing with the graph. And then we're going to have 2 partner showcases about smart apps that have been built on top of the Microsoft Graph. And then we're going to talk about next steps. Let's start with the opportunity. So what is a Microsoft Graph? You've heard a lot about it during Build, during the keynote this week, and some other sessions. Microsoft Graph is a REST API that provides a comprehensive developer experience that allows you to integrate data and intelligence exposed by Microsoft services. And one of those Microsoft services is Office 365. So I'm going to spend a little bit about talking about the opportunity behind integrating with Office 365. As you know, Office 365 has around 90% of Fortune 500 companies using the service. That's more than 100 million active users on commercial accounts only. That's not counting the users that we have on the consumer side of the house, which means that that's loads of data that is stored in our services and exposed through the Microsoft Graph. Those data is around the data that helps users be productive on a daily basis. And then Microsoft Graph on itself has a lot of momentum in the company. If you've seen just in the day 1 of the Build keynote, we had more like 69 mentions of the Microsoft Graph on the keynote itself. So what is it? What does it give you? It starts with the data about users in the organization. So it's who is the user, their organizational structure, whether it's their reports or their manager, the groups that they belong to, their contacts, their teams. And then from there, it starts to the fixed data that they have on their services, whether it is their documents or their tasks or sites in SharePoint. And then it goes to conversational data, like, for example, chats in Teams or email-based conversation in Outlook. And finally, we take all of that data, and based on the signals and the activities of the users in our service, we calculate insights. So we're able to know important information about what the users are doing within our services, who are the people that they're working with. So all of these linked data that is exposed through the Microsoft Graph starts giving you a great possibility to access rich insights, rich content, and this basically is core to the platform and core capabilities that we have as part of building applications on top of this data. OK, so what can you do with it? Basically, we have The core data that drives Office 365, that drives Microsoft services, is exposed in the graph, and you can use it to start answering questions in your application, right? Like, who's this person? Is the person out of office? Who's their manager? What are the documents that are working on? Their conversations, their meetings, and all of that information. So you can make this data work for you when you access it through your application, and it's basically the core to the Office 365 platform. Whether you are building a standalone web application or a device application that accesses this data directly, or if you are building an integrated experience within our Office 365 canvases with our extensions, whether it is Office add-ins in Word, Excel, PowerPoint, tabs, or integration with Outlook and Teams, or whether it is SharePoint and integration with SharePoint pages. Okay. So the Microsoft Graph, just to sum it up, is a single endpoint that allows you to access group and organizational data. With it, you can access, with one endpoint, one token, all of the users across consumer and commercial services. And this is an important note. For the set of services that are exposed both in consumer and commercial, like OneDrive and Outlook, you can use the same code base without having to change anything and access both sets of users. So this is a little bit of an empiric set of data in terms of like historically how easy it has been to integrate with Microsoft services. So before, like if you had about a fixed time frame, let's say 8 weeks to do a project with our services, you've probably spent a lot of time just getting started, just figuring out where the documentation is, what are all of the different endpoints that there are, like where's that data stored, figuring out just how to start looking into like what are the set of things that I have to munch in together in my application. Then you had to go and do auth. And for the ones that have already been through that journey, you know that that's not an easy one. So you spend a lot of time in there. And then interacting with the different APIs, if you had to go through different services, which basically left that there was very little time for you to actually add your value. So as I mentioned earlier in the talk, where the software developers use data to improve people's lives, my contribution has been go and improve the Microsoft Graph and improve the experience of integrating with our services so that now you can very easily go and use all of the data that is exposed within our cloud and have more time for your value proposition. Okay, so with that, we're going to just dive into 0 to 60 integrating with Microsoft Graph. So first of all, there's two core concepts that I want to introduce that Microsoft Graph gives to you. One of them is data, and the other one is capabilities. When we look at the data that is in the services that is exposed in there, you might be familiar more with the services themselves. So there is data coming from Azure Active Directory, like here's the users and groups that are part of the organization. There's data coming from SharePoint, like sites and lists. Actually, this week we announced the general availability of the Lists API as part of the Microsoft Graph. There's data coming from OneDrive around files, so that you can do all of these different set of operations around files on all of the document libraries in SharePoint or on your personal OneDrive. There's also data coming from Outlook, Excel, OneNote, Planner, the contacts directly, and this is all the things that we have on our V1 endpoint. Further down the line, we have also a preview endpoint that has data coming from Teams, from Insights, as I was mentioning before, from Project Rome that talks about like devices and activities that the users are doing within those devices, Intune for device management, Office 365 reporting for usage, and much, much more. So if you can see like the progression of all of the data that is exposed within the Microsoft Graph, and how easy it is once you connect with one of these services, with one of these data sets, to just go and the opportunity that it opens up for you to access all of the other services. So at Ignite, we have some announcements. First of all, SharePoint Lists is GA. We also have a preview for a whole bunch of different set of things that are coming that are now available in Outlook. rules, categories, time zones, working hours, headers, and rooms. This one actually, getting all of the rooms was a big ask on user voice. So it's great that we can now have it available. And there's OneDrive file versions. And then throughout the year, we're always releasing new data sets, new capabilities, new content. So I just wanted to also point out that there's a lot of things that we've announced during this year, whether it is at Build or from Build to Ignite. We had lots of announcements throughout the year. And this is only on the data sets that are being exposed. OK, so now you know what data is behind Microsoft Graph. Let's go and do a tour on how do you get started developing with the Microsoft Graph. First of all, graph.microsoft.com is the place to go. So I'm going to switch here, and we're going to take a look at the developer portal. So graph.microsoft.com is going to redirect you to the developer portal. Here you're going to be able to learn about all of the different set of information that is exposed through the Microsoft Graph. If you go to the navigation on the documentation, you're going to see information about how to get started. But I also wanted to show all of the different set of data that is exposed in the graph. And the things that you see here on the left-hand column and the things that are part of the V1 endpoint. And there's a beta node as well, where you can see all of the different sets of data that are the set of services and data that is exposed as part of our preview endpoint. There's also a place where we go and put all of the different set of things that have been changing throughout as we put more data out there, as we make fixes or enhancements to the API. And it's the changelog. So here in the changelog, you will see all of the different things that we're adding on a regular basis and all of the different changes that we have for a given month. So we try to publish this every month. I'll totally recommend that you go to the changelog to see what's happening on the graph. OK, so I'm going to jump back. So really quickly, what we have in the graph is information about the user. So you have information about who the user is. You can bring information about their photo, their direct reports, their manager, and the groups that they're a member of. So this is information about who the user is within our services and the profile that they have on Office 365. From there, you can jump to accessing their content. So whether it is the files in OneDrive or their messages in Outlook or their conversations in Teams, or their notes in OneNote. All of these different set of information is exposed through the Microsoft Graph as simple navigations that you can do. And basically what you get is JSON that you can parse and just get the data. And as I mentioned before, we have insights that we calculate based on this data and the activity that the users have on our services. So we can start telling, for example, what are the set of files that are trending for a given user, because there's collaboration, the collaborators network uses those files. Or what are the recent files in OneDrive? Or what are the, for example, what are the people that I work with? Not necessarily because I have the same organizational structure with them, but because I have a working relationship with them, and I can start making search on top of that on specific topics. So I can go and tell the graph, tell me who is the last person, who's the last mic that I was working about this particular project or this particular keyword, and the graph is going to tell that back to you. Today we're going to have, not today, well, throughout the week we're going to have a lot of deep dives on what is the data, further down what is the data that is exposed in the Microsoft Graph. There's a set of sessions here, so I totally recommend that you go and check them out, which are going to take each of these data sets and are going to go way deeper. So there's a session on OneDrive and SharePoint where Ryan Gregg is going to talk about all of the new announcements about the list API. He's going to talk about manipulating files and all of the other things that are exposed from OneDrive and SharePoint. There's a session about enterprise management and that I totally recommend that you go with Dan Kershaw and Jeff Sakovic. And there's also sessions on how to access the Microsoft Graph from SPFX, that Luca Vandanelli is going to go and give as part of his Let's Build with SharePoint session. There's also sessions about Intune, Project Rome, and about Exchange. So check these sessions out. that are going to go much in depth around the details of the data that is exposed in the graph. OK, so after you've seen the documentation, the next step is basically to go to the Graph Explorer. So let's check the Graph Explorer out. So here's a link on the navigation on the page, which is the Graph Explorer. And for those of you who have not seen this before, it's basically a web application that allows you to make web requests against the API and see the JSON response right inline. So, actually, let me just go back for a second, because I wanted to show one thing. So we said that this is a REST endpoint, right? So the endpoint is graph.microsoft.com, and when you make a request to the endpoint, the HTTP verb maps to the intent of your request. And then there is basically, from there, you go to the version of the API, which right now we have V1 or beta, to the resource, which can either be groups or sites or drives or users or devices or many more that we have exposed. And then we go to the members of that particular connection. So if, for example, I'm navigating to users with just an ID, whether it's the UPN or the ID, I can go to the information for that particular resource. And then I can do navigations, whether it is to a property itself, so for example, the department that a user is on, or to another resource, which is, like for example, here navigating to events of this given user. And all of this data is exposed. I can manipulate the data using query parameters, whether it is formatting the results with select and order by, or controlling the results with filter and expand, or paging. So if I want to get back, controlling the results that I get back, I can use query parameters to do that. OK, now, with that said, let's go to the Graph Explorer. OK. So the Graph Explorer is a tool that will allow us to make these requests into the Microsoft Graph. You don't necessarily have to have an account with Microsoft in order to get started with the Graph Explorer. We are using a demo account, so if you just come here and click Run Query, you're going to see the results on the Graph Explorer from a demo account right here from without necessarily logging in. But you get much more useful information when you log in. So the ability to do post requests is also enabled when you log in. So I'm going to log in with this demo account right here, my alter ego, Megan Bowen. And let's try to see some of the requests that I was talking before. So the first one we saw that, which is the me endpoint. Me is a token to /user/ID. And what I can get from there is the profile information of this particular user. And we saw some of those requests before. So let's go and look at other things that you can bring in the profile. So for example, I can go and say select equals about me and display name. And for those of you that know that about me, how many SharePoint developers do we have in the room? OK. So you know that about me is a property that is coming from user profile service in SharePoint. And the display name is actually a property that is coming from Azure Active Directory. So what the graph is doing is, like, you don't have to worry about where that information is stored. It's going and fetching that information on the multiple endpoints and aggregating the request for you. Actually, if I come and this is just for I don't know why it's not formatting the JSON correctly, but if you go and do $what-if, then let's try that again. What I'm going to see back is the two requests that the graph is making to make this for this particular request. The first one is going to be to the SharePoint endpoint. Hold on, I'm just going to stop here. To the user profile service to bring that, and the second one is going to be to the graph endpoint. Oh, it's very hard to see. Hold on. So this one right here is to the SharePoint endpoint, and the second one is to graph.windows.net with the Azure AD endpoint. So the point is that you don't have to worry about, is that particular property stored in SharePoint? Is that particular property stored in Exchange? No, you just go to the graph, and you get all of that information packaged in a single response to you. OK. So what else do we have here to show. The next thing about profile information, so you can navigate the organizational structure. You can go and say direct reports. I don't think this person has a direct report, so it'll say manager. And you can get the information for that particular manager. And from there, once you have that user, once you have the profile of that user, then you can start accessing the content of the user. And I'm going to show you, like here on the Graph Explorer, how can you start seeing that. So when you navigate to the Graph Explorer from the first time, you're going to see this getting started queries. I'm just going to go and put it like that. And if you click on show more samples, then you can turn on and off all of these different query capabilities around the different data sets. So I can go and say, hey, show me the queries around users, and it's going to give me examples around specific queries on users. So I can go and show some of the similar query that I was just showing before. And I can go, for example, to Outlook. And let's bring in Outlook mail queries. And go on, just with very simple clicks, go and do queries against the Microsoft Graph. So this one right here, for example, is going and querying all of the high importance emails on my mailbox. So notice that, as I was mentioning before, how you call the endpoint, I'm filtering here for the property important, and that importance equals high. So very simple to go and use the Graph Explorer to interact with all of the data that is within our services. So let me show you one of the OneDrive queries. So I'm just going to toggle on to OneDrive. So I see all of the files that are in my OneDrive. OneDrive also supports search. So I can come here and say, I'm going to do a search on the files that are Excel files, so .xlx, XLSX. And I'm going to select the name of the file and ID. And also I'm going to select the web URL, select name, ID, and web URL. So what I get back is I'm getting all of those Excel files that are part of my OneDrive, and I see all of the ID, the name of and the web URL as I requested on my query. Now, if I take one of these IDs and then just navigate to that particular file, so this time I'm going to go to items and get the ID there. I see that I get the metadata of that particular file. So on that particular file, I can then go and see who was the person that last modified this file. So this is where we start taking information from one service and traversing to another service. So I can go and see last modified by user. And what I get back is the information of the user who last modified that file. So it's connecting different set of data sources. It's information that is in OneDrive and then connecting to information that is in the directory. I can also go and see, for example, what are the versions of this particular file. So I can go see versions. And it's going to bring me back a bad request, of course, because versions is in preview. So we can switch to beta, run the query again, and I'll see all of the versions that are as part of this file. And let's say, for example, that I don't like the changes that Nestor did on this particular file, and I just want to restore this version. So I can go and grab the ID. So it's the ID of the version of the file that I want to restore. And I'll navigate to that particular ID. And then say restore version. So notice that right now I have version 3 as the last version of the file. I'm going to do a post request to update the version. And what I get back should be a 204. There you go. And if I query again, do a get request again, and I query against versions, I should see a version 4 that is the restore of the previous version that I had on my file. So very simple with using REST to go and manipulate the data that is on our services. Finally, I'm going to show insights. So another announcement that we did recently is that we now have in V1 the People API. So if you go to the people endpoint, what I get back, let's do selection. What I get back is a set of users that are relevant to me because I work with them on a regular basis. And I can also use topic search on this particular query. So I can go and say, hey, search. Search is really hard to see with the light on. So I can go and see, do a search on this. So I can say equals, I want to bring in all of the people that starts with N, that I have been interacting with the topic, I don't know, let's say contoso. And what I get back is, well, maybe, let's say, what I get back is people that match this particular query on those users. So the ability to use topic search is one that we have as part of the people API. OK, now let's go back to the deck. We saw the Graph Explorer. And the second thing that we have, so that's the data. So in terms of data, we have profile data, we have content information, and we have insights. In terms of capabilities, we have the ability, obviously, all of the information that is exposed in the Microsoft Graph, you have to have authorized access to it. So you can work with either with users from work at school accounts or personal accounts, but there's always an access token that needs to be present. And this can be either a user-delegated flow or an application flow. We saw a little bit of the OData capabilities on doing filter, pagination, and ordering of the requests. It's important to note that in addition to just the normal capabilities that the graph has for accessing data, this is not only working on the worldwide cloud, but it's also working on national clouds and supports conditional access. And finally, there's a certain set of query patterns, like whether it is webhooks that allows you to go and subscribe to a particular resource and see the changes on that resource. Delta, which allows me to go and take a state of a given point in time of a resource. So I can go and call the groups on a Delta query and say, give me, the next time that I call with this Delta token, give me all of the changes that have happened since this Delta token was created. Extensions, which basically is the ability to add data to the Microsoft Graph, and batching, which is JSON batch to add multiple requests on a single query. And then we have SDKs and tooling, whether it is with Visual Studio and Azure Functions, that allows you to ease up your integrations with the graph. So in terms of announcements for capabilities, we now have app-only support permissions for OneDrive. And we also announced this week Azure Function Bindings for Microsoft Graph. And throughout the year, we've been doing several announcements as well. So Delta Query, webhooks, extensions, and batching are part of the things that we announced throughout the year. OK, so I'm going to focus on 3 things and then do a demo of them. The first one is getting changes. So very often, we have the need to go on track changes on resources. So for example, I want to know when a user is added so I can kick off a workflow, or I want to know when a group is provisioned so I can go and do additional manipulation to that group. So there is, with a combination of Delta Query and webhook subscriptions, it allows you to track the changes on the service very easily. So the first thing to do is going and getting a Delta token, and then creating a subscription on that particular resource, such that when the change happens, a notification is fired to the service, and you can come back with a Delta token and get the difference. The next one is extensions. So this is the opportunity for you to add your own data into the graph. So extending our existing resources like users or groups, or messages, or calendar, or contact, and going and adding that data into the graph. There's 2 ways to extend the graph. One is with open extensions, which basically you're adding a key value pair untyped data into a particular resource. So here it could be, favorite color is blue for a given user, and that it is a very simple thing that you don't need a schema for. And the second one is a schema extension. A schema extension allows you to define a specific schema that you are going to apply to a given type. So when you define the schema, you're going to say this particular schema applies for these types, and then you can write information on that resource for that particular set of data. And then, of course, you can go and query based on those extensions that were added to the data. OK. And finally, batch, which is basically the ability to add requests with JSON, do JSON batches and add and chain multiple requests on a single request that is sent through the wire. So let's do a demo around that. And the demo is going to be like this. First, we're going to track data. Second, we're going to change it. And third, we're going to react it. So we're going to create a group. We're going to create a Delta token on the group collection. So we're going to be hearing for what are going to be the changes that are going to happen on the group resource. Then we're going to create a group and add an extension to that particular group. So we're going to, in this case, we're going to extend the group with a specific set of metadata from an online course. And third, we're going to go, after the group is created, we're going to go and do a batch request that is going to add a whole bunch of information. So it's going to add a member, it's going to create a folder, an event, create a task, and then mark the group as favorite for that user. OK, so let's jump here. And let's do what we just said. So I'm going to do all of these from the Graph Explorer, actually. So I'm going to go and say, we said that we're going to be using groups. We're going to be using extensions. And we're going to be using batching. So I'm going to bring those queries right here. And first of all, we're going to do is like, hey, let's see all of the groups in the organization. So this is the list of all of the groups. Now we're going to do Delta. And when I'm going to get right here, you'll see that there is an OData next link. So basically what this is a link that is going to tell me what are the set of, let me just go and copy that. Hold on. This is a link that is going to tell me what is the next page for all of the groups that are coming. So I can call to the next link and continue to page on this. And then at the end, I'm going to get a Delta link. So once I make that request again, you see that instead of having a next link, now I have a Delta link. So this is the link, the information that I save. This is my Delta token. So let's put it right here. Let's call again. So this is my Delta token. When I call, I'm going to have an empty response because nothing has changed on the groups, right? So I have that Delta token. And now we're going to go and see group creation. But before we see group creation, let's talk a little bit about extensions. So we're going to create a group with an extension. And in order to understand a little bit about extensions, we can use the Graph Explorer and come here and see all of the available extensions, or get the groups by a particular extension. So I'm going to query groups, and I'm going to get all of the groups that have this particular extension called Adatum ISV. And right now, I have a group, one single group that is marked with this particular extension. I can see that data from that group. And if I go to this query right here that allows me to create a group with an extension, I can see that I get all of the payload right here. And I can just, let's modify the display name of the group. And the information about the extension is going to be, I can declare it right here in my JSON. So the extension had a definition of an ID and a name and a type. So I can, as part of my group creation, I can pass in that information for the group. So I'm going to create the group. And I see that I get back to a one response with metadata from the group. I see this ID right here. And I'm going to take that. And now I'm going to do a batch request. So I can perform, let's take this batch. So batch request is basically we're going to go and grab all of the information that we said that we're going to do on this group and then perform it on a single query. So here on this batch, I'm actually going to remove this body right here, and I have this group batch JSON. Let's replace the ID. And then what we have here, let's take a look at this code, is going to make basically requests. It's going to, the batch request, you pass an array of requests. And in the first one, I'm going to go and add a member to this particular group. So it's a method post. It's the first request that I'm sending. And I can just a simple JSON pass in the body and the headers of my request. The second request is going to go and is going to create a folder that on the group's OneDrive that is called training folder. Then the next request, as we were saying, is going to go and create an event. So basically, it's going to, let's see, this is 27th, go and create an event on that particular group's calendar. The next request is going to go and create a plan, and the final request is going to do add favorite for that particular group. So if we send this over as part of our batch, we're going to see all of these being executed on the server side and get an answer back. And the answer that I get back on the payload, it's going to be the result for all of the different requests. And whether they succeed or not, actually, I see that there's 3 requests that have failed. Says resource not found. So the first one that was basically adding the first request succeeded, right here. We see at 204. And that was the request to add a member to that particular group. The second request did not, which was the request to add the files. Unable to provision resource. Let's try that again. So if I remove the request to add a member, from the batch, and I remove this dependency right here, then I should be able to run the query again. And it's still, OK. I'm not sure what's going on here and why it's not provisioning the resource on OneDrive. I'm just going to move on. And well, the idea is that we can probably come back to this later. You send a JSON payload that has all of these different requests, and they execute back on the server. I probably have a typo here or something. Then we can, after that happens, then basically if we go back to that Delta query that we did in the beginning, let's see where's that Delta query. What we're going to see is instead of getting an empty response, we're going to see the response of the group that was added to the group collection and that was changed afterwards. OK. So basically what we've done so far is I've told you where to go and see the documentation on the Graph Explorer, how you can go and see all of the data that is exposed in the Microsoft Graph, and then looking at some of the capabilities that are exposed. So now the next step is doing a quick start. And we're going to go and jump to our doc portal again. So if you click here in quick start, this is a very simple way in order for you to get started with the Microsoft Graph. So if you have any preference on the different languages that are on platforms that are exposed here, so you can start by basically just clicking on one of these. In this case, I'm going to do an ASP.NET MVC application. And the nice part about this is that it's going to go and create an app ID and a secret for me right on the fly. So I can come here and get the app ID and secret. Let me make sure that I'm signed in first. Where's my, did I close it? So I'm going in the quick start, getting an app ID and secret. Oh. OK. We have a little glitch going on right now. So this is going to go to the app registration portal, and it's going to create an app ID and secret, and it's going to give me the secret right here. So I can copy this, go back to the quick start, and add the secret. And basically what this is going to do is going to package the solution, and it's going to give me a zip file that I can go on the download and basically just run. Here it is. I can unzip this and basically just download it and run it. So I can just unzip. And just run the solution. Visual Studio is going to open it up, restore all of the NuGet packages, and do all of the different things. And I can have a solution up and running with just a few clicks. The solution that we're going to open it right here, what it does, it goes and signs in the user, grabs their user profile, allows them to send an email, and the email that is received then goes and, after the email is sent, goes to the profile information, grabs the photo, puts it in OneDrive, and then in the email sends a link to that photo in OneDrive. What? Oh, thank you. So if we come here and look at the code, we're going to see that it's using the SDK. And like as I said, it's going to get the email address for that user, then send an email with the particular file. So let's see that running. Did it launch? I'm going to grab the user's name here. Or maybe just put localhost, this one right here in this window. So I can sign in with a Microsoft account, sign in with Megan, accept the permissions for that particular application, and gets the email address of the user, and then when it sends the mail, it's going to go and send email to this user with a link to that particular file. OK, so very simple. And if we go back to the code, you can see that it's using the SDK for Microsoft Graph in .NET. Let me see. Let's go back to the email. It should be here. It says, success, your email was sent. And this is the email that was sent from the Connect sample. If I click on the link, I'll see the OneDrive, the image that is stored in OneDrive. So from 0 to an application in less than 2 minutes, that using the quick starts, which is very good. OK. So the next step on developing with the graph is doing app registration. In this particular case, we're not going to do the app registration, but I wanted to mention something about the Azure, the endpoints that we have available today, because this is a decision point that you have to do. Unfortunately, today is a decision point that you have to do when you start your application development, which is whether you go with the V1 endpoint or the V2 endpoint. And there's 2 separate places to register. So the takeaway is we want you to be using the V2 endpoint. That supports both work, school, and personal accounts. But it's also totally fine if you're using the V1 endpoint and you have existing applications that are using ADL today. So in V2, when you go and register your application, you're going to create a new application. You're going to add a platform, which can be either a web application, and a single-page application, or a daemon app. And then you're going to configure the permissions. And the big difference if you've done a registration application before with the V1 endpoint, it's that this time around, you not necessarily need to pre-configure all of the permissions that your application wants to access. Then I'm going to make a note around the different app types and permissions that we have on the service. So whether you're building an application that gets access on behalf of the users, which is a single-page application, a web app, a mobile or device app, or an app with a middle-tier web API, you're going to get a delegated permission. And the effective permissions of the request that you make is the intersection of the delegated permissions to your application with the permissions that the user has. And in this case, either users or administrators can consent. When an administrator consents, it consents for all of the users in the organization. The second one is getting access as a service. Here, the effective permissions of the request are all of the permissions that the application has, and only a user can consent to this. And as I mentioned before, in order to call the Microsoft Graph, you need a token. This access token is unique across all of the data sets that are exposed in the graph, as long as the token has the right set of permissions. And we have a full session that is going to go way in depth around how to, all of the different ways and different flows that are in order to get access, the access tokens that are needed to call to graph. So the session is in the west side at 10:45. So you'll have 30 minutes to go and catch up that session. OK. So one of the last steps is the SDKs. We have SDKs available on a variety of languages. And then we have integration with Visual Studio with the Connected Services experience that allows you to get started within Visual Studio with an app registration, very similar to what I did with the Quick Start. And this week, we're announcing the Azure function bindings. And basically, this is by far one of my favorite things on the conference, which is the ability to go and create Azure function bindings that interact with the Microsoft Graph. And the best part of it is that auth is handled for you. So I don't have to go on and bring in all of the different libraries. I can just go and create an application, and all of the things underneath the covers that the function is going to handle for me. There's 2 sessions that are going to go deep into Azure Function and integration with Microsoft Graph. One, both of them are happening tomorrow. One is from the Azure Functions team, and the other one is from Dan Silver from our team. I totally recommend that you go and check those out. But I'm going to also do a demo of those functions real quick. So here I'm on the Azure portal. And I've already created a function that is using the Microsoft Graph bindings. This is a preview feature, so if you want to take advantage of it as well, there is a flag that you need to go and toggle. Basically, on the version, you have to have beta. And once you get started, the first thing that you're going to do is to configure the app. I've already done it for this particular function, but I wanted to show that when you come to the authentication and authorization configuration, you can select, the wizard basically creates the app for you, and you can go and manage the permissions of the app and grant all of the permissions right here. You can, if you wanted to change the permissions that are coming from the specific application that is created, you can change them right here. So once the auth is configured, you can create functions. And the simplest way to do it is to come here to the templates. There are about 4 templates that are provisioned for the graph. So in the scenarios, you're going to check Microsoft Graph. And there's all of these different templates. This one is basically just doing an HTTP trigger to get the profile photo. And the other 4 are there to allow you to handle the webhook creation, subscription, and refreshing, all of the life cycle of the creations of the webhooks. So let's see one of these. So let's going to create the profile photo one. It's going to grab the configuration that I have already for my application. And if I just create it right here, it's going to basically have an HTTP request against the graph. I can go and grab this function URL. This is, and from here, I'm just going to make sure that I'm logged in and go to the function, and I'll see the picture of the user right there. So I'm calling the Azure function that is going and grabbing the picture of the user for that particular thing. We've also, on the Office General session, we demonstrated the creation of the webhooks. So you can basically go and create a handler for the webhook and then go and create a subscription. In this case, I wanted to do something slightly, just take that a step forward. And what I've done is, so I've created a subscription that is going to check for emails on the users. And now I've also created a handler. And this handler, what it's going to do, it's going to call back, when it fires, it's going to call back to the graph and make a change. So if we go here and see the bindings, what we're going to have is a binding that is bringing in the Microsoft Graph. This is the Microsoft Graph binding for Azure Functions. And the difference in the other one is that I'm going to use the client's credential flow. So what's happening is that when a notification gets fired, you receive that webhook in your code. And then you can pass in a token. In this case, it's going to be a client credential token to call back into the Microsoft Graph and do a change. So if I call this particular, and if this one actually fires with an email. So let's go and send an email. Can send an email from this one to that user. This is another account, so I'm going to send an email to that user. It's going to add XT2000 to the subject, which was the one that had function hat. And if I go back to the function and see the logs, once the email comes in, the function is going to wake up, and it's going to say that there's an error. Well, it's going to bring me back. So it executed, and it errored out because I'm adding this user as a favorite, and it already had a favorite. But notice what happened here, which is I got back a token, and I can call back with that token for the particular user. So the webhook is firing. I'm getting the code, and then I'm able to call back into the Microsoft Graph. The demo gods are not being very good with me today. OK, let's. The final step we've gone through 0 to 60 to developing with the Microsoft Graph. The final step is build and distribute. But I wanted to make a point on not every single set of data set is available in the Microsoft Graph today. So for all of you SharePoint developers, there are still things in the SharePoint endpoints that are not available in the Microsoft Graph. And while the Microsoft Graph is the simplest way to access all of this data, there's still things that are in the specific endpoints, and you'll need to access those specific endpoints to call to them. And I wanted to show an example of calling the SharePoint REST APIs for things that are not in the Microsoft Graph. So let's the steps to doing that. First is you're going to go and get an access token for the Microsoft Graph. You're going to call the Microsoft Graph to discover the SharePoint root site. And then you can use the refresh token that you got initially to now get an access token for SharePoint and call the SharePoint endpoint. So let's see that. OK, here I'm in Postman. How many of you are familiar with Postman? OK. So what I'm going to do here is this first request is going to get an access token. Notice that I have the resource. I'm doing a V1 app, so I have the resource here for graph.microsoft.com. When this request executes and come back, it's going to have an access token. So this access token I can take right here, and I'm going to make a request to the Microsoft Graph, to the sites collection, and to get the SharePoint IDs, the site URL. I'm going to add the new access token to that particular request. And I'm going to send it. What I get back is the host of the SharePoint site that has this information for this particular user. So I can copy this and come back to the token. So instead of going and getting a token for graph.microsoft.com, I'm going to get a token for the SharePoint endpoint. So I send it, and I get back an access token. This time, the resource, notice right here, is the SharePoint resource. I'll get this access token, and I can come to the SharePoint endpoint. Notice I'm calling SharePoint and then underscore API web navigation, add this token that I just got, and get back the information from SharePoint. So even if there is information that is not in the graph today, you can very simply, without having to create another application, without having the user to consent again, you can go and create and call the individual endpoints. OK. So that brings us to the latter part of our session. So we talked about how you can, get started with the Microsoft Graph. Now we're going to see two samples of our partners that have built applications on top of the Microsoft Graph. So we talked about how you can use all of these rich content, insights, and real-time updates. And before you use that, the first thing that you can do is to leverage the Microsoft identity. So in terms of leveraging the Microsoft identity, it's very simple to do an OpenID Connect flow to know who the user is within our services. And with two very simple requests to the graph, you can make your apps more personable. The next thing is about rich context. So in order to show you how one of our partners have added rich content into their application, I'm going to invite Wes Hackett to the stage. Wes Hackett is from Adin365, and he's going to share how they're using the Microsoft Graph to enhance their app.
On a slide, just one more slide first. Good morning. So, as Leona said, we're a Microsoft ISV based in London in the UK. We've been using Microsoft Graph to unlock collaboration and productivity scenarios across Office 365 since Graph launched in 2015. So as a business, we're focused on helping every organization with an Office 365 platform to really maximize the productivity usage, the collaboration services, and we do that with a number of tools. Every single one of them is underpinned by Microsoft Graph. It's been the single most beneficial investment in Office 365 dev APIs that Microsoft have delivered, and it's unlocked collaboration scenarios that years before that would have been almost impossible. You wouldn't have been able to bring Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive into the same page, into Microsoft Teams, into any of the other scenarios, mobile devices. So Microsoft Graph for us, Adin365, really unlocked the potential to leverage all of Office 365 as a collaboration platform. 7. So this is one of our products, Adin Work Hub, and it's based in SharePoint Online. And this is giving us a view of several parts of Office 365 that aren't SharePoint. So at the top of the page there, you can see we've got information coming from Exchange Online. And we've actually got 3 different parts of Exchange being brought into that one component. We've got the personal calendar view, so everything of the meetings in my current day. In the center, we've got the information from the event itself. So when that meeting's coming up, we've got the ability to immediately join the Skype call. So if it's a Skype meeting, we can, straight from this page, we can click in and go there. We know how many people are coming. Far right-hand side is actions. So not only is there information coming from Graph, but we can provide actions back and actually give ourselves the ability to interact with the attendees. I'm running late. I'm going to let everyone know so that, if I'm the meeting organizer, everyone sticks around for that meeting. Another use case scenario, we've got the groups a bit further down. So SharePoint framework, add-in model, it doesn't really matter which model you choose to deliver into SharePoint itself, but you've got the ability now as a developer to leverage Microsoft Graph straight in that SharePoint page. You're going to see, as Yina mentioned in Luca's session, the investments that Microsoft's development team are making in making Graph extensions easier within SharePoint framework. But today, you've got the option to quickly and easily use it in both add-ins and client-side development. So I'm going to dive into Visual Studio and just sort of, this is a run-of-the-mill sort of average MVC environment. This is an ASP.NET part of the platform. So this would be the client-side app part. And you can see you've got the things that you're familiar with. You've got a controller backend here that's calling into a data repository. And then when we jump into the data repository, we're talking about that calendar strip across the top. The first call is one REST call. Give me my calendar. If I come back further down, oh, sorry, that one's the top one. There we go. That's the calendar endpoint. Just put a simple date range, one REST call that we could learn and find out from the Graph Explorer. So again, getting started with this stuff with Graph Explorer and those quick starts is super simple. And for my development team, we use that as our starting point. We go into that Graph Explorer, we work out our use case, we bring together that content, and then we get into the particular delivery mechanism. So this one's the MVC, but if you were talking about mobile application, we're talking about a Teams extension from Microsoft Teams, you'll use different parts of your user experience, but you're still calling the same data. So further down, we've got that call the individual event. So then now we're in the middle strip. So at this point, we're still really talking about calendar. So we're on the node in Graph called, calendar and me. The actions themselves, they're sending mail. So we saw in that example that Yina did where there's the quick start that creates the mail. We've taken advantage of the mail endpoint as well. We're letting you, I'm running late, sends mail to all the attendees. So that's just a really quick example of how an organization can take advantage of the massive amount of data that you put in Office 365 and leverage it into a user experience that's bringing those services together and putting them where you need them. In this particular example, it's SharePoint Online's pages, but it could be a bot, it could be Microsoft Teams, it could be a Xamarin application. Really, the choice of user experience is yours, and Microsoft Graph is really powering that underneath. So at in 365, we've bet our entire organization's ability to deliver to our customers on Microsoft Graph. Everything we do is based on Graph, and we've had a really amazing time. And I think if you haven't tried it yet, it's a good time to start exploring what Graph can do.
Thank you, Wes.
Okay.
So that was a great example of getting rich content exposed to the users, leveraging the rich content that is exposed in the Microsoft Graph to build applications. The next example that we have is around harnessing insights. So when we mentioned that we have a set of insights exposed in the API that allow you to get access to the activity of the users, that allow you to get access to information about what they're doing on our services. So with that, I'm going to invite David Lavenda from Harmony to show us how Harmony is using insights in the Microsoft Graph to enhance their application.
Okay. So I just need to.
I can take that.
Oh, okay, thanks. Just need to know which one. Okay. So thank you, Yina. So yeah, Harmony is really about putting the human at the center of today's digital experience by presenting information the way the brain works. And we use a lot of apps today, and with the credit card IT environment, people are using more and more apps, some from Microsoft, some from other vendors, and it's becoming a very difficult work environment. So it's hard to get things done. Each app does well at a task, but not so much on a business process. So you end up toggling between apps trying to get your work done. That's why Harmony created Collage, which is what I'm going to demonstrate here. And Collage really is the enterprise hub that's built on the Office Graph, the Microsoft Graph APIs that enable us to bring together lots of different applications and services, both from Microsoft and, as we'll see, also from outside the Microsoft ecosystem. So with that, I'm going to switch over. So what we see here is my Outlook window, and with all the apps, what people end up doing for most of the day is spending their day in Outlook. So Outlook becomes the place where we believe that people can bring together all their work and be able to focus on topics rather than have it to go to search for information. So if you're thinking about working with a customer on the sales process, you can stay in Outlook and see all the information related to a particular operation you're working on. So I'm going to look at an email. What you'll see here is on the right side of the screen, whoops. What you see on the right side of the screen is the collage window, and what we've done is we've actually extracted using natural language processing, extracted the topics from that email, which you see up here, both from the structured and the unstructured data. And using the Microsoft Graph APIs, you also see we have notifications down here below that pull out the profile, the photo, the email, the things that Ina was talking about from the different applications in a very seamless way, and it all appears here in one place. And then these are the notifications related to it. So now if I'm looking at what we're doing with Hilton as a sales process, I can see all the things related to Hilton, whether it's coming from email. We see here some things coming from Zendesk. I'll scroll down, we'll see things coming from documents, so things in SharePoint. And these are, of course, not just notifications, these are actually live links. So if I click on this and I want to see what this document is, I can just click on it. It will launch that document in context. I can make changes to it, edit it, and then go right back to what I was doing without losing context. But one of the important things that we get from the Microsoft Graph APIs, you'll see here at the important updates. So we got a lot of information related to the sales process. How do I know what's most relevant, what I need to focus on now? So what you'll see at the top here is a couple of updates. And what we're doing is using the information about the documents, the items trending around me, as well as the people I'm working with, API from the Microsoft Graph API, using that scoring those values, and then bringing in other metrics from machine learning and also from frequency of how often these topics appear in different places, and that appears up the top of the screen. So using those APIs make it very rich and give us some insights into what's relevant for people to work on right now. And what we do, which is quite novel, is we actually extend this beyond the Microsoft world by bringing in things like here's Zendesk. So if I click on the Zendesk update, I will also be able to launch that. So I'm able to use the Microsoft Graph API, for example, the people I'm working with, the affinity score of how close these people are to me, to score how important and how relevant updates are coming from things also outside the Microsoft ecosystem. And that's really a cool use of the APIs. So I think that's an example of how we can get insights and both from Microsoft and also from extending it out into the beyond.
Thank you, David.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Okay, so to wrap up, you can basically call the Microsoft Graph on any device that you're building, whether it is a web application or a native and a device app, a bot, a background process. And this week we have deep dives on actually like the three ones from the bottom. So we have a specific session that is going to dive into business processes using Microsoft Graph and Azure Functions. We have a specific session that is going to go deep on building bots and devices connecting to the Microsoft Graph. Actually, if we get the opportunity, we might be able to show some of the things that you're going to see there here on just a minute. And then finally, we have one around developing enterprise bots with Office 365 that Richard Desarego is going to give on Friday. So don't miss those sessions. Super cool being able to go and see how to integrate devices, bots, and business background processes with Microsoft Graph. Okay, so next steps. A little bit about the roadmap. So as you've seen on the announcement slides, we continue to make significant progress throughout the year to go and add more and more data sets to the Microsoft Graph. So we're going to take the things that are in preview right now going into general availability. We're adding more data sets that are coming into the graph. We are enabling richer query capabilities. And one that I want to mention is that we're working on improving our consent experience to make sure that we can remove some of the barriers specifically around consent for groups. And I'm going to also let you know that you can influence our roadmap by sharing your suggestions, going to user voice and voting, or creating new requests there. So I'm going to go back to where we started on how to your value proposition of improving lives with the software that you built, and how you can use the Microsoft Graph and all of the data that is behind it to actually feed your applications. So let me know about the things that you're building. Just tweet me with at Irenas and also at Office Dev as well. We want to know about the things that you're building. And you can get started today. So just go to graph.microsoft.com. We are very active on Stack Overflow. So if you have questions, you can post them on Stack Overflow, tag them with Microsoft Graph. We have a GitHub organization /Microsoft Graph that you can go and see all of our code samples, and on a variety of different languages right in GitHub. We also have our documentation open, and just connect with us through these channels. There's also a set of related sessions that I just showed you. There's quick starts in the expo area. And we also have our developer program. So if you are not part of the Office 365 developer program, please join. There are a lot of perks that are available as part of the program. And we are also having a set of virtual hackathons in different cities around the world. So check them out, and you might be able, join all of these from our program. This is a list of all of the related sessions that I presented through the different. Throughout the different parts of the session. But if you want to take a picture of all of the different Microsoft Graph-related sessions this week, that's there. And with that, thank you so much for your time. And thank you for being here today. I hope that you've learned how to integrate with the Microsoft Graph, and I'm going to open it up for questions.
Yeah, I have a question. Microsoft, the Graph Explorer, I'm over here. The Graph Explorer is really cool, but I do have a question. When is it coming to the government cloud?
What is it coming to?
When is it coming to the government cloud, the Graph Explorer?
Yes, it's part of our roadmap. It's part of our roadmap. So the question is, when can we use the Graph Explorer against the sovereign clouds? So actually, we do have a version of the Graph Explorer that works against China, and it's part of our roadmap to enable the ones that works against the cloud in Germany and further down the other national clouds.
So it is covered to the government cloud. Excellent, thank you.
Any plans for on-premise?
Excuse me?
Any plans for on-premise?
So for on-premises, we have today a preview of Microsoft Graph Access and on-premises data for Exchange 2016. So there is a way that administrators can go and configure their Exchange services to go and enable the Graph to access those mailboxes that might be on the cloud. And if you're interested for other data services like SharePoint, we hear that. I'll encourage you to go to user voice and help us vote for that. It's part of our roadmap.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question about the Azure functions and then Microsoft Graph bindings. Is it app-only permissions or just user consent?
Both. Both. You can do user credential flows and client credential flows.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Hi. Here.
Hi.
Hi.
Does the graph support favorites? I'll get all my SharePoint favorites because I wasn't seeing where that is.
You can get the group favorites. So you can set and query for favorites on groups.
But not SharePoint sites?
Not SharePoint sites right now.
The example Una said about call the SharePoint API with the token, because the SharePoint favorites, for example, is a REST endpoint on SharePoint. So you would just go in, you do one auth flow, you get your SharePoint token, you call in through the API.
Yeah, that's what we're doing. We were just hoping there was a cheat way to do it. So, yeah. Thanks.
Well, user voice, yes.
Okay.
From the keynote presentation, I got an impression that, let's say, Microsoft Graph is like one kind of graph, and there is LinkedIn Graph, another
That's
graph.
a great question.
And they can kind of collaborate with each other. But can you a little bit like elaborate on that?
Yes,
Can
absolutely.
you explore, let's say, LinkedIn Graph from the Microsoft API?
The answer is no. LinkedIn information is not exposed through the Microsoft Graph. We are integrating with LinkedIn. However, there are different set of policies for accessing data in LinkedIn. So as an ISV or as a developer, if you want to access LinkedIn data, there is a LinkedIn partner program that they have that you can sign up for, through that program in order to get access to that data set. What you get access through the Microsoft Graph is about users, groups, and organizational data within the Microsoft Cloud services, Office 365, Windows, Intune, and all that. Like the LinkedIn section is separate at this point in time. We are integrating in first-party experiences like you saw on the keynotes, but on the API level, they continue to be two APIs.
So I assume you just like use the extension mechanism on the Microsoft Graph to add, let's say, a link to LinkedIn profile,
Absolutely,
for example.
you can absolutely do that. You can use extensions to basically connect the user to their profile. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
So we use Azure AD Graph, and we've been hearing conflicting things about moving to Microsoft Graph. What's the state? Is that going to be deprecated, and are we going to have all the events support and all of that in the Microsoft Graph?
The specific service endpoints continue to be there, and they are supported. It is our mission to go and move all of the different things to the Microsoft Graph as fast as we can so that we can provide a better developer experience for our customers. But if you're using the Azure AD Graph today, that continues to be absolutely fine. If you see value in moving to the Microsoft Graph, then move to the Microsoft Graph. And we are going to be transitioning at some point in time to have the graph be the only endpoint that we expose to the developers.
Is it like short time-ish? I mean, I'm looking at a year, 2 years, 5 years. I mean,
I don't. So there are several services that we have today that we have full parity with the API surface, and for the ones that not, we're working towards getting there. Unfortunately, I can't say how much it's going to take us.
Thanks.
So is the Graph API has the API throttling?
Throttling.
Yeah.
Yes. So the throttling behavior today in the Microsoft Graph is that you basically get 429 responses when you're being throttled, and you can react to those.
Is there anywhere I can use like a Redis cache or those things I want to use in cache so to minimize the throttling? So is there any training for those things?
I don't understand your question. Can you please repeat?
I want to use the Redis cache or those in caching so to minimize the call to the graph.
Yeah.
So is there some sort of training on this?
So you can use caching if you want to for the data that is exposed. We certainly, there will be places where it's not recommended to use caching because the data changes constantly. But, just training. I'm sure that there are sessions this week about Redis cache, but I mean, it's just.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what else to tell you yet. Yes, you can use the caching mechanism. Okay, thank you.